All right, good afternoon, parents. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate your presence and your time to join us. I'm Mrs. Tan, the HOD, the head of department for CCE, which is Character and Citizenship Education. So today we are looking at perspective taking for a global outlook. We would like to share with you how the school help your children to prepare for this globalization. So yeah, this is what we are going to share with you. Maybe I'll share the agenda with you. So we are going to share with you how our school approach perspective taking and why perspective taking, share a bit of our vision for our students, and then share with you some strategies or how we create that learning experiences for your children in terms of perspective taking, and then more importantly, how we can work together with you to help our students in their perspective taking and their global outlook, to develop that global outlook in them. And along the way, anytime you have questions, please do feel free to type into the chat group and a chat function. So anytime you have, please type in. So once again, welcome. Very heartened by the number that are in this town hall meeting. I think the fact that you have come and joined us shows your commitment and support, and you see the importance of building character in your children. Okay, we thank you. We know that academic achievement is important, but I think many of us increasingly realize that without putting the horse and the cart in its right places, our effort may be a bit wasted. So in Admiralty, we emphasize a lot about character and citizenship education, and we do that in one of the bigger ways is through the perspective taking experiences that your children are going through with us. So let me share with you the context in our school and how we help children in this aspect. So do you know that we discuss these topics with our children in class? I wonder if you have spoken to your children and they have mentioned such things, right? How is the Ukraine and the Russian war even relevant to school children? Don't worry, we are not teaching them, about all these big ideas without making them age appropriate. We make sure we simplify some terms. It's not so much about fighting right, but we want them to be aware of issues that are around them, because we know that if we don't talk to them about this, they may form their own conclusions, impressions from wrong sources, perhaps. Social media is so rampant. So these are issues that we want to help them understand a bit more, right, so that they can take the right perspective. So we do make sure that they are age appropriate. If they are much younger, we will say in a very simple way so that they understand the perspective, right? We want them to know and be aware of the contemporary issues, the news that are going around them. Yeah, we even talk about this issue about this JC student in the Middle Eastern costume enacting terrorist gimmicks, and then there was police investigation. So we brought this up shortly after International Racial Harmony Day last year, and this article came up. We quickly addressed it in our social studies lesson to ask the children, is this an appropriate reaction? Are these actions correct? Are there better ways of understanding racial harmony? Okay, what are the consequences of such actions? So we taught them about stereotyping, right? Doesn't mean that only terrorists are all from the Middle Eastern countries and so on. So okay, we want to clarify some misunderstanding if they do have. Nearer to just this today, right? Today we talk about tensions arising in the around the world, right? The children are aware that there are wars, fightings, tensions between US, China, and so on. So we focus on multilateralism. Okay, it's important for the world to collaborate, and especially Singapore, we need to maintain excellent relationships with countries around. Therefore, we talked about building a strong, cohesive, prosperous region, promoting stability and peace, and then all because we need to sustain the economy and the growth of our own country as well as those around us, because it impacts us. So we also showed them things like, yes, wherever we can, we offer help to promote peace and stability. And therefore, during this episode, which has happened last year, it's still continuing, Singapore SCDF actually sent members to help in the rescue work. Okay, so these are issues that happen in school, in class, and I hope you are aware. If not, maybe in future, you can talk to your children and find out what they learn in class. So today we want to maybe share with you a little bit more about perspective taking for global outlook. As you know, our school vision is to inspire, or rather develop inspiring and empathetic leaders with a strong global outlook. We must not be inward looking, but we want them to be aware of what's happening around them, because we want them to understand the impact and consequences of our actions, thoughts, and beliefs. So, all right, this is one of the questions we received in one of our town hall sessions, where a parent was asking how Admiralty prepare our children for globalization. So perspective taking is definitely one way to help our children have a bigger view of the world. Okay, so a bit of what we do in school, a bit more. Okay, we unpack the school vision into a school theme for this year. So every child in every admirals, we call our kids now admirals, the young admirals know about this school theme for 2023, growing together, gratitude and courage and excellence. So how does this connect to perspective taking? Okay, the emphasis will be to be thankful. All right, gratitude is to be thankful for friends, peace and harmony, and of course, family members around us. Okay, the good things that we have the courage to speak up, provide their views in a respectful manner. Right, when things go, when there are issues around, when there are news happenings around us, how do they speak up? How do they present their views? Okay, and in a respectful manner. And of course, excellence, we want to always teach them to strive to see that there are always multiple perspectives. There's no one side to just a story. There must be many sides involving different people. Okay, I think some of you may be aware we have this vision for our students. So if I can bring you through, right, number one is our vision for the students are inspiring leaders with a strong global outlook, which I've just explained. So this is about understanding Singapore's position, being small with our limitations, but yet at the same time, we show them, or we want to discover how Singapore has been constantly pushing the boundaries to achieve the best, to do what we can, even as a small country. Right? Number two, every student an empathetic member of society. So we appeal to the heart. Okay, we must feel for people around us. Number three, they are confident and skillful communicators. So knowing a lot but not able to speak up, not being confident is not something good. So we want to develop confident, skillful communicators who can influence others positively, not just for themselves, but doing things for others. So this is the hands part, right? And fourth, our students are proactive and resilient. Okay, they possess the skills to resolve their own problems. We do not just want to give them a fish, but we want to teach them how to fish. I'm sure you have heard of this quote. So we want them to develop skills to solve their own problems, because all of us really do not know in a few years, in 5 years, 10 years, what kind of issues our next generation will face. So they need to know how to resolve the problems and challenges around them. So we tie this in, or rather these are also tied in with the CCE 2021 goals, which are also lessons in the mother tongue, CCE mother tongue lessons, where they want, the goals are to develop good character, resilience, and SE means social emotional well-being, right? So mentally, socially, emotionally, all these are aspects of a child that we want to build positively. And okay, they must be future ready and active citizenship. It's not just doing something because of themselves, but to be active participants of the society. So next, we want to also share a bit about how we guide our students in thinking about their own thinking through reflection, how they apply the lessons or the issues that we discuss in class, how they apply, think about what are the focus, okay, how they can examine and understand their own thoughts and emotions, create that sense of responsibility. So in the values, the student values or the school values of grades, I think you all are aware, and we tie in with the social emotional skills or competencies, where they learn to be more aware of themselves and others, manage their own themselves, and also how they manage relationships around them, and what kind of steps, what kind of skills do they need to be responsible, to make responsible decisions. Okay, once again, we want to also assure parents that we are not just focusing on all these values and character building and not emphasize on the academics. We understand that, yes, the importance of studies, but at the same time, like we have mentioned, we also know that to put the cart before the horse is not very useful. So we want to make sure that when the values and the thinking is right, okay, the studying and the academic results will come along. Okay. So yes, the big idea is about resilience. So in our learning experiences that we create for the students in our curriculum, we intentionally want to build their resilience. Okay, resilience because the world is quite difficult. Our students, our children are faced with many, many challenges. And I think many of the challenges we may not even understand, because as we're growing up, we don't face them. So in building this resilience, okay, mentally, socially, emotionally, we want them to know the right way to view themselves, their own strengths, areas that they can work on. So you have heard about Totty and Hoppy as well, right? So we are all tortoises in some way, because we are slow, we are not talented in every area. So certain areas we may not be so fast, so we are tortoises like Totty, but it's okay. We will see how best to develop that area in ways that we are better, like the hare, Hoppy. Then those are areas that we can move further, faster, but at the same time, we don't want to be a proud Hoppy. So these are some taglines and language that we use with the students. Okay, and choices. So we want to also impress upon our students that there are always choices. No, they cannot say that there is no way they can do this or that, but there are always choices. They have to find out, they have to ask if they are not sure. Trusted adults, ask the people around them, their friends who may know better. There's always ways to solve an issue. So it is up to them to have that resilience, the skill to know how to make the right choices and find out what is best for themselves. Okay, so relationship is important because we are all not an island of our own. So we don't want them to be so self-centered that they do not know how to get along, because we know that our actions impact others, and our actions, right or wrong, have consequences. So we want them to see the perspectives in relationships, in their observation skills are needed, right? They need to speak up, and how do they do that properly? we would like to highlight this article. In fact, and we know that, yes, parents all are very concerned about the students' happiness, okay? But this article, just barely half a year ago, tells us that developing resilience is probably more effective, right? Many of us, when we see a children being sad, maybe we just tell them, oh, cheer up, don't be sad, be positive, look positive, but they may not know how. How do I look cheerful? How do I overcome my sadness? So have a read. You can scan the QR code and then you can read this article on your own. Okay, just a few bullet points below. For example, it says that, parents often focus on happiness, but happiness actually emerges from resilience, which will help the child regulate difficult emotions and stressful solutions. So it's a skill that parents can help children develop. Okay, so have a read, can have a screenshot. Take a scan this QR code and see how you can move on from there. Okay, they talk about emotion bar, a jar. So what is that? How do you manage? What is in the emotion jar of your child? So let me elaborate a little bit about how we create that learning experiences in terms of perspective taking in our school. So for example, these are just examples of skills that we use to highlight perspective taking. So number one, multiple perspective taking, this idea of generative conversation, and also authentic learning experience. So we do this throughout the year through our NE commemorative days, through social studies, through our FTGP lessons, and mother tongue CCE lessons as well. So for multiple perspective taking, simple statement would be a yes, no, maybe. So maybe a statement like, oh, personal mobility device, perhaps. It may be after seeing an accident, when someone is not careful on his or her PMD, then a discussion question could be PMD should be banned. And then the children will decide whether yes, no, maybe, and then they can explain why, right? And whatever view they take, they can listen to their friends' perspective. Why I may choose yes, it should be banned because it's bad. But my friends may say no. Why do they say no? Or why some say maybe? So they get to hear different views. Another way would be the views of different parties involved in a particular situation or an article. For example, in our social studies lesson for P4, Journey to Singapore's Independence, or even the war in Ukraine and Russia. So whose perspective are we talking about? Perhaps in the war issue, perhaps, the Ukrainians may have their own perspective and their own ideas. Russians may have. And what about Singaporeans? Okay, do we have our own stand and views as well? So these are the parties involved. Or we can examine multiple perspectives through disciplinary lenses. For example, in the social studies again, right? If they are talking about planning an estate, okay, what will the town planners, what will be the perspective of the town planners? What about the elderlies in the town, or even the children, or perspective from a historian for other issues, or even an archaeologist? So these are the disciplinary lenses that the children can take on and put on when they talk about issues, right? So, okay, this was when it started, like last year, March 18, the Ukraine war in the capital city of Lviv. So there was opinion, right? Russia may have legitimate security concerns, but does that mean that what they have done, creating a war, is that right? Okay, is it appropriate? So we get the children, to think about this. Is it right for them to use force? Is it appropriate? Are there better solutions? And then they can talk about their perspectives. And we also highlighted the fact that our PM, right, Prime Minister Lee, also mentioned that, yes, the war may be very far away from Singapore, but it affects us because it does endanger the sovereignty of countries. Does it mean that any country who is powerful, they can just invade and attack another smaller country, right? Is that right? So the issue of sovereignty, and right, so why is Singapore taking such a strong stand against Russian attack on Ukraine? Because we also want to ensure our own survival. So therefore, national resilience in total defense is also important. We help the students to see that this is an issue that we cannot take for granted. Singapore is always very vigilant to make sure that we can survive. Okay, so, and we also highlighted, okay, for example, this National Day rally speech by our PM Lee, just last August, right? He mentioned that, yes, everyone has to, there are diverse groups in our multicultural society. So everyone has to accept that we cannot have everything that we want our way, right? Everyone has to accept that no group can have things all their way. So therefore, groups have to exercise restraint. Okay, we must consider other perspectives. What are the issues involved? What are the factors? And this is the only way that we can move forward as a nation, right? No one can say that I just want everything my way. So the idea that the children must know that, yes, to survive, to develop, we must learn how to listen and understand others' perspectives so that we can exercise restraint, think of the consequences and the impact of our own actions and words, right? From young, this is important. And also the idea that, yeah, why do I need a perspective, all right? Is my perspective that important? Must I always be the right one? Then you are always the wrong one. Okay, do they need to be so dogmatic about it, fixated? Right? Must I be very strong about it? Do I need to listen to others? Or perhaps when I do not know enough, I have not heard enough, can my judgment, my views, my perspective be tentative, right? Until I listen to others, I find out more evidence perhaps, and then I make a decision. Or sometimes you know that certain issues we don't even need to make a fixed decision. We can leave it open, right? We may not need to be so strong about it. So these are ideas that we are teaching our students. Everybody, especially when they are young, they're very egocentric, and they are also very entitled perhaps. And so they think that, oh, my way must be the right way. So we want to question, is it really that? Are there ways to solve issues rather than just insisting on someone's way? So this year, Total Defense, we focus on public vigilance, and we talked about in the discussion, why is it important? Why has it happened? They watch a video and then they discuss what has happened. They take the perspective of the people involved, how they feel, they put themselves in those shoes. And what if they were there? I just want to give you another example, perhaps for, right, why is it important? For younger children, sometimes we have to revisit this important issue of why, the rationale, right, of learning or even considering others' perspective, to see that others have a voice and they have their own thoughts as well. Okay, and this step in, step out idea to practice perspective taking is something that we use pretty often, especially in our discussions. So this is also part of generative conversation. So this idea of generative conversation is to connect the discussion to the students' lived experiences. So different child comes to school with different experiences at home, outside, right, in the student care, wherever, or even grandparents' place and so on. So we need to make connections so that they can understand certain issues and share what they have experienced and make sense of their own experiences. So others listening can hear that, oh, it's not just this experience I have, but other people have different kinds of experiences. And then in listening to all these different lived experiences, what are the appropriate actions to take? So this year, we have this example of brushing. It may be new to some of you, but I think it's very common. We hear a lot about scammers because, for example, the woman who ordered a step ladder on Shopee, but then received only cardboards instead. So when we had this discussion, it was quite interesting because many of them say, yeah, my father or my parents also have this issue, and they start to relate their encounters. So we get them to share, we use this CCE journal very frequently. So you may want to take a look at your child's CCE journal, see what they have jotted down. In fact, almost every day we have a message for the day, and we encourage them to write it down. So I think some enjoy writing, note-taking, and they also use that as a way to recall, review what they have learned. And you can use that as a talking piece at home as well. Okay, a few more examples. This is done in social studies, where they also have a social studies journal. And then these are some notes that the children have written down. Okay, so they see the point of, this was about self-radicalization. So it may sound like a very big idea, but we unpacked it, make it simpler for the students to understand, and they could relate. Okay, and they know that, yes, it's important for a small country like ours to make sure that this idea of self-radicalization doesn't go out of hand. Okay, this is another example, right? So the platforms and how people can be influenced by social media, and they're not knowing the right sources, and they get influenced and self-radicalized. And especially for Singapore, racial and religious diversity is our strength. Okay, we learn to appreciate and to get along with people of different backgrounds, but it is also something that gives us areas for concern if you're not very careful. All right, there are inherent vulnerabilities as well. Okay, so let's move on to this third idea of authentic learning experiences. So authentic is real. So for example, we take them through design thinking protocol. It's a very adult idea, but we simplified it and brought it to the young children as young as P1, but they deal with simpler issues. So they will find out in their community, from the observations at home and so on, some issues that they think could be of concern, issues that they may want to solve and improve, and then they form teams to work on it. These are our last 1-2 years kind of projects from the different levels, and they go through the empathy stage, then they define the problem, and they also, they talk about ideas, and then they try out what is their idea, and then test it out whether the audience or the people understand what they are trying to solve. So let me bring you through this very simple a P6 project. Okay, it's the same thing. Is the this is done in our applied learning program, ALP for short, through our SS social studies lesson. So they looked for, through the design thinking stages, right? So they look at social issues, they explore social issues in the community, in the school, in the class, and even in the family. And this group, they came up with some suggestions of, okay, in the community, what are the issues? In school, what do they observe? And families, and so on. Then they decided that, okay, we want to focus on feeling pressure and stress. And after the ideation, they talk about, okay, they bounce ideas, they went to search and survey and so on, and they realized, okay, they decided that, okay, we were going to we dwell on this idea of creating a website. So a simple website that they created, and they sort of tested it out. They create one simple website called Stress Free, and they started by asking their friends and telling their friends that we are here to help. If you have problems, share with us, and so on. So like I mentioned, this is a P6 project. So although they could not really complete this properly, hopefully this will be a springboard for them to solve more real issues when they are in secondary school. So these skills are definitely very important and useful for them as they move along. It's their life skills actually. So nearer this year, earlier this year, just a few weeks ago, we have this World Day. So this is another platform or experience that the children have. We turn off the taps only in the canteen during their breaks, and they couldn't wash their hands from the tap, but they only had that little bit of water from the mug to wash their hands. So although it's so-called, it's a bit of a fun, but I think some of them did share with us and reflected that they sort of understood a bit or have a taste of what reality was when there was really no water long ago or in certain countries. Okay, so this is how we help them put themselves in different shoes to experience different situations. So in handling sensitive issues like this, some of the topics that we have mentioned just now, we present facts from the internet perhaps, or from news articles, right? We avoid giving them our opinion. We will present different perspectives. Perhaps, the newspaper says this, or we read from another source, the minister may present this. So we help them see the different views that may be available. But we always ask them to check with their parents. Go back, talk to your parents. Okay, listen to your parents' perspective. We do not want to contradict your family values and teaching as well. So we always tell them to go back, check with your parents, discuss with your parents, right? Whether it be issues on jobs or interests or any other concerns around the world. And with in all this, we always emphasize the respect that we should show when we present our views or when we listen to other people's view. So I may not agree with you. I don't think that is right, but at the same time, I will accept it respectfully because, okay, I have my stand, you have your views, but we can get along because, okay, I respect what you believe and what you hold as your views. So thank you for joining us. Definitely your role and your participation has shown us that you are in this together with us. The partnership is important. We appreciate the support that you are giving us or showing us in our character development journey. So, okay, like we have mentioned, we share all these strategies that we use in school, the ideas and the concepts that we teach, so that you can help us reinforce what we have taught your children at home as well. Okay, so how can you do that? Okay, we suggest perhaps you can spend time watching news, reading news together, read with your children certain articles perhaps. Okay, if they're too young, you read a bit of it. I think we also always hear parents, or sometimes when we talk to our students, or can you talk to your parents? And no, because our parents always ask us only about homework, and whether I finish my homework and things like this. So perhaps move away from just asking them about homework, but find out about what they experience in school. Okay, and to highlight to your child, your children, that we are all unique. Families are unique. Your friends around you are also unique. And the experiences that we have perhaps help us see things very differently. So the different perspectives. And as parents, perhaps you share with them what your family values and perspectives are. And yet, when it is different from others, the children must show respect, right? Respond to them in a polite way, respectful way. And should you have any concerns, or when your children tell you things that it doesn't sound correct or complete, please clarify with us, right? Because some children may miss certain points, and or they may not be able to communicate very clearly with you. And if you feel that it is of concern to you, please speak with us, speak with the form teachers perhaps, or whoever your child heard it from. Clarify with us. I'm sure we always have clarification for you. Okay, there will be, we are very mindful of our actions and our words that will impact the students, your children. So therefore, what we say, what we do, we are very mindful. So the last point is, yes, the things that we as adults do, okay, we do impact. There are consequences on our students. So if we talk very disrespectfully about teachers who said something and the child perhaps brought home and then didn't quite communicate it in a correct manner, and the way we respond may also teach our children wrong things. So we, as teachers as well, how we communicate to the children, our tone and all that, we are mindful that we impact them and there are implications. So hope that these pointers are useful to you, and definitely we look forward to that partnership that I'm sure you're very keen to support us with. Okay, so I have come to the end. I think we see some questions in the chat. Is there anything that, okay. All right. Anyone has a question to raise, or we can, anytime if you have issues, have concerns, you can always speak to us. All right. You can call the office, you can email me. The office will also direct you to the right person to, if it's your form teacher that you want to talk to. I'm sure you will have different ways of communicating with the respective people. So I hope this session has been useful. Thank you once again for joining us, taking the time to be with us in this journey. So if there is no question, then it just leaves me with thanking you once again for joining us this afternoon. So you can watch the recording on our YouTube channel. So anytime you have concern or have issues, or you have forgotten something that may be useful to you, just have a watch, and also can help us spread the word if you have found this session useful. Okay, so thank you very much, and we'll see you sometime somewhere in school. Thank you.